Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Puzzle Podcast. Me and Bruno, two business-minded engineers, exploring very difficult questions around product development, innovation, and everything that comes with it in something a bit more than 10 minutes. Today's question is how to make better decisions in product development. And this is another of those very simple questions. So what is a good decision, Bruno? Let's define it so that we can see how to make better ones.
Okay. Almost like a philosophical opening, but I share what I consider to be a good decision. I don't look good decision purely from the perspective of achieving desired outcomes. That would be too easy to say. To me, sometimes we can do all the right things and even make a good decision that leads to what we could term a failure. So to me, a good decision is when we have considered all the options, when we have accessed all the data that we could have sensibly accessed and all the insight, and based on that, we made a decision that we can live with. That to me is a good decision. Of course, a great decision is the one where you make a good decision and it leads to the best outcomes. But in innovation and in product development, in life in general, we can do everything right, and it can still sometimes lead to undesirable outcomes. So that to me is kind of what I would consider a good decision. And how to make better decisions to me is about what we do with inputs, how we handle the whole process. But I'll share a bit later.
I like the angle that you bring up. It's about uncertainty. It's about managing uncertainty. If you're doing something that has very little uncertainty potential, then are you really managing something complex that has the opportunity or the potential to become an innovation? Probably not. So yes, you would like to boil the ocean, analyze everything from the start, sit down and analyze everything conceptually, decide upon the requirements, the specifications, the implementation details, and do this for years on end. And then when you're ready and you decide that this is the right way to go, then only you start moving to the next step, which of course we know, maybe it was once upon a time, theoretically, it was possible. People degrade it as waterfall, which doesn't actually work the way people think it does or ever did. But it's certainly a very bad way to make decisions because you lock yourself down into something where today is the decision based on data or information or hunches or whatever you have that is incomplete, uncertain, and likely to change. And while you're progressing with your activities based on this decision, which was maybe too early, the world shifts underneath your feet. So you end up at some different state of the system where your assumptions, whatever those were, might not hold true anymore. And therefore you have to undo, rework, adapt, and that causes delays. And still, I agree with what you're saying. Maybe that could have been the best decision you could have made at the moment. Maybe sometimes you don't have data. Maybe you don't have access to the market, to customers. Maybe the technology you want is not ready yet. And you do a bit of a forerunning to be ready for when it comes. So it's all about, in my mind, good decisions are those where you don't lock yourself down into something which will cause too much disruption to undo, while also moving in a valuable, I wouldn't say correct, in a valuable general direction on which you will build further decisions, hopefully better ones.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and kind of, again, discussing kind of what I've seen work well in practice is first, you have to strip the decision. You have to make it naked. Like usually when we talk about decisions, and this is very cultural based. So in some parts of the world where people have the tendency to talk around the subject, and you know, some cultures are more direct, kind of how it's directly spoken about the subject. Whatever the culture is, you have to strip the decision, make it naked. What are we actually deciding on? Like what is here the point that we're all together and we have to decide? And once you have stripped it naked, then the next question is, what do we need to know to decide? And this is to me so simple and so powerful question, because once you start opening up, okay, what kind of data, insight, etc. you need to decide, then you can start looking into, okay, what do we already know? And then you have that gap between what you already know, what you need to know to decide, and that gap is the thing you should be attacking, and that's how you get the speed. Because to me, one of the things I didn't mention earlier, you did imply it, and I completely agree, is the speed of decision-making process. So it is okay to decide, for example, not to act, which isn't the same as taking so long and being inactive for so long that things change. These are two completely different cases. In one, we decided, we made a conscious decision based on everything we know. We're gonna pause, we're gonna observe the market, we're gonna observe what's happening, and then we're gonna make a decision, versus, oh, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? It's like two completely different approaches and processes that look similar to the outsider, because in both cases, if I'm on the outside, I see
nothing
you
happens,
not doing anything. Right. While on the inside, one of these parties is in full control, while the other party is just like a headless chicken.
Yeah, it's a bit like having, in my mind, when you have a lot of resources or a certain number of resources. Let's say you have a team, and there is a certain arena of things that you wish you would know about your product, your endeavor, whatever. Then the resources you have need to balance doing with preparing to do. So it's like having a multi-core processor. I mean, everybody now has a multi-core processor. A typical smartphone has like 8 cores, whatever. And we are not processors. So we, as a team, we do not want to minimize the effort expended. We want to maximize learning. So if you have resources idling, the idea is not to say, oh, why am I paying those people to sit around? Let them do something. But the best thing you can do when you still don't have enough data to make a decision is to scout ahead asynchronously, to make decisions on every domain of the team, so that people build what it is in programming terms called a promise. So there is some stuff that we'd like to find out. It's not there yet. We need to base some decisions on certainty and on uncertainty. Some of the uncertainty might be resolved through experiments, understanding, research, but actually doing something in a pilot way, an experiment that I tried with customers, maybe a technological one, so that if the bet turns out to our favor, and later something comes back asynchronous and says, yes, indeed, there is a new technology. This is possible at this cost. This is possible at this lead time and so on. We do not then only start to work towards this direction, but we have prepared the ground to move towards ever better decisions, ever more juicy lessons and insights. And I think that's when you're working alone, or whether you're working as a team, it doesn't fundamentally change, because you can, let's say that you're developing something by yourself. It can be a software, it can be a service, can be anything. Can be I don't know, can be something you're researching for your own term. Maybe you're learning something. If you say, I'm going to dig deep in this one, so I'm deciding among the many facets of these things, I'm going to dig deep on one of them, you are neglecting other things that might help you unlock insights, because we learn combinatorially. Some of us at least learn very combinatorially. So maybe work a bit on this, give it a go, let your mind or your teammates' minds relax, come up with ideas, work on something else. So then gradually everything starts to come together. And that's actually part of decision making, because there you're deciding what you're going to invest your time on this, on this, on this, or that. And you need a bit of everything. Where some parts are more risky, you invest more time. Some things which are more superficial, you need to take them into account, because the decisions there are not that crucial. So you need to be moving ahead across multiple domains, multiple aspects of the system, so that you converge over time. And I know it sounds very, in my mind, it's very clear, but it can sound very fluffy, very fuzzy, because it's a dynamic process. It's not something we can say, oh, you know, how to make better decision is delay as long as possible. That's people what also say, right? The paradox of Toyota. Decide as late as possible. Yes, okay, but will you be able to do this with every decision?
It's more like a rule of thumb that's not always
exactly.
Kind of what's important is that what we have been discussing, and we have 20 seconds to go, so I'll try to keep this short. In reality, we are discussing about improving the process of decision making, because the assumption is if you improve that process, you are going to be making better decisions. But the most important and most valuable thing you can do, a listener, as a team, management lead, whatever, is to surface and make your decision-making processes explicit, because then you can start improving them. Because we are all making decisions, but it's very rare that these processes are kind of perceived, talked about, discussed. And one more thing is, there's a very, very harmful saying, don't argue with success, which is, if we made a string of shit decisions but still made a lot of money, then we will not argue the decisions. That is very, in my opinion, unethical approach. So don't just look at the results. Just because you're successful or you have succeeded with something doesn't necessarily mean you made a string of good decisions. So always be critical, always reflect, so that you can repeat your own success.
Right, and last thing is so bringing to the surface, or making clear what your decision-making process is part of being absolutely brutally honest with yourself, with the team. So you're addressing uncertainty. It's a situation that causes anxiety in people. There are even, as you said, there are cultures where admitting to not knowing is seen as a negative thing. But there are cultures where mastery is super important, and somebody admitting to not knowing, especially as they are perceived as an expert, as a senior, whatever, manager, whatever, might be seen as a reason to lose rank, to lose stature within a team. And that is actually that is guaranteeing failure sooner than you expect. So part of the making clarity more prominent in your endeavor is to take care to surface, like, well, as I say, it's not a very beautiful picture, but bring so the turds flow to the surface. All the things that you are afraid is going to blow up in your hands, put them right there and then. Some people say, put the fish on the table. What are we afraid of? We're afraid that the market estimation is wrong. We're afraid that this technology will not deliver what it promises. We're afraid that the supply chain will not deliver what we want by the time we want. We're afraid that this, and that. Put everything on the table so that you are actually doing what you said at the beginning, Bruno. You are making the decision very clear what it is you're deciding, what is you need to decide about, and what can you pause, because yes, it's a worry, but it's probably not that important. So it takes brutal honesty to make better decisions. In the end, that's the only thing that you can say it's a one-to-one answer, black on white. So I think that's a summary of the situation. So thank you for watching this episode. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.